Best SMMA niches to go for in 2021. To be honest, guys, at this point, like, these kinds of videos are just a bit repetitive for me to make, but to get those thick, juicy, top of funnel views for my YouTube channel, I'm gonna show it all today. I wanna do something a bit different with this video. Normally people just say, oh, e-commerce and real estate, dentist, blah, blah, right? I'm gonna break it down into two different categories. I'll be talking about the various services that you could be offering. So the easiest services to the highest barrier to entry services, but that provides the highest returns and things like that. And which service I feel like is a good entry point for beginners in terms of lower barrier to entry and greater upside. Then I will be covering the various industries that you could go into and the best services that you could offer to best serve those industries. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm in the e-commerce space and I have quite a few friends that are doing pretty well in their agencies across different verticals within the space. So I have a pretty good understanding of like the pulse of the market and where demand is kind of trending to. So yeah, let's jump into the services that you should be offering, in my opinion. So to start with, I'm just gonna list out a bunch of services that you could be offering, and then I'm gonna dive into each one and what I think is gonna be good about it, what I think is gonna be possibly the downsides of it, and things like that. So number one, and the most famous one probably, is just ads. Like everyone, their dogs, their mums, their cats, their dads are offering Facebook ads right now. Number two, email marketing. This is something that I'm offering. Number three, creative. Creative as in performance creatives, so to generate direct ROI, or branded creatives to make things look good and make the brand come across really well, aesthetically, I guess. Social media management, so just basically posting and maybe content creation for brands' social medias or businesses' social medias or people's social medias. Social media content creation, so basically just writing captions, creating hashtags, and actually creating the creative as well. So maybe that involves video editing, Photoshop, things along those lines. Next is influencer marketing, so basically hooking brands up with good influencers with the right audiences and partnering those people up, and then just basically being the middleman. Video editing and personal brand growth. These are the main services that I see people offering nowadays within the SMMA world, and I'm gonna dive into each one. So the reason why ads is so popular right now is because with ads you are bringing clients direct ROI. So what that means is, you know, they spend $1, they get 4, essentially. This is the result that you're trying to replicate for your clients. And the reason why this is so good is because this is probably one of the more difficult services to actually fulfill, because there's so many moving parts in terms of you need to factor in the cost of goods sold for your client, the conversion rate and things like that. I mean, if you're doing lead gen, for example, you need to know what your target cost per lead is, because you need to make sure the quality and the close rate of the client is kind of aligned. And the reason why ads is so attractive to people right now is just because there's literally infinite upside you could create for clients. And if you are able to create infinite upside for your client, you're gonna get paid a very, very healthy amount. The downside to the ad space now is it's highly, highly competitive and it's stupidly saturated. Like, I mean, with my clients, for example, they get bombarded with emails every single day of just people trying to run their ads or, you know, do their emails or I don't know, like anything along those lines. They get absolutely bombarded. Next service, obviously email marketing. Again, it's pretty saturated, quite frankly, but you know, great service to offer. You're bringing clients incredible return on investments. It's a good service to offer. That's why I choose to offer it. The reason why I pivoted away from ads is just because emails I personally prefer a little bit, and it's a bit more kind of like linear in terms of the learning curve. So to get to a competent level with emails, it's not that difficult. However, to be like the top 1%, it becomes just as complicated as ads. However, with ads, it's like it's harder to get yourself off the ground because it's harder to get experience and attain media buying experience. However, once you do get a bit of experience and you understand what's going on, it's actually, in my opinion, easier than emails maybe to master. And then, you know, at the very, very top level, it just gets to about the same in terms of difficulty and things like that. With things like creative, social media management, people used to kind of discount that in terms of, hey, this is like a lower tier service. However, I really do think social media management is going to be making a comeback in the next year or two. The reason this is because everyone's running towards ads. Like ads is like the golden child of the past year or so, right? Everyone wants to do ads because ads pay more. However, what's going to happen once all of the agency owners and all of the service providers goes towards ads? Well, the demand for social media management, like everyone needs social media management. What's going to happen is, you know, because demand has stayed the same and supply has dropped, people need to raise their prices so that, you know, equilibrium is reached. So social media management, I feel like is a pretty good vertical to scale, especially if you want to be in the agency game for the next kind of like 2 to 3 years. I don't think it's a bad place to scale. And another thing with creative is actually where I see the biggest opportunity within the space. And the reason I pivoted into emails exclusively and not creatives is just because I don't have a creative background, quite frankly. Like if you give me a camera, God knows, like I wouldn't be able to shoot you a good ad creative that performs well or whatever. Definitely, if you have a creative background, being able to churn out high volumes of performance creatives is kind of where I see the future going in terms of a service delivery standpoint. In terms of influencer marketing, to be honest, this is probably the service that I understand the least of. There is definitely a lot of opportunity, but it's just not something I'm well versed in, so I'm not very well informed to kind of advise you guys on that, but obviously there is opportunity. Lastly, it's video editing / personal brand growth. So for example, right now, like I work with my friend Vince. He edits all of my YouTube videos, he captions it, he schedules it for me, he does the thumbnails. So it's like he's taking a buttload of work from my shoulders, and it's really good because now I have more time to kind of focus on helping my students, helping my clients, and growing my own agency as opposed to making content for you guys, right? Like having him is the only reason why I'm able to upload 3 videos a week. And I'm telling you, like all of my agency owner friends are trying to get on making content as well, and they understand the power of YouTube SEO. And the bigger people in the space are kind of waking up to this as well. Like they really want to build a platform for themselves, because in my opinion, where the future is going is like everyone needs some form of like influence or whatever, and you know, personal brand growth is realistically the only way to go about it. If you want to do this effectively, you really need someone to kind of help you and walk you along the algorithm, because over the years the algorithm has indeed gotten more and more complicated, and the people at the top are using all the tricks in the book to kind of like game the algorithm, and you need to be playing at a very similar standard as well. So video editing and personal brand growth, really good niche to be in as well. Now let's talk about the kind of industries that you actually could be in, and which industries actually see the highest growth potential. Personally, you guys know that I'm in the e-commerce space, and I do still see massive opportunity, simply because I do think e-commerce as a whole is going to be like the future. And we're still kind of in the early adoption phase. I mean, people in our age range might think, okay, e-commerce is already way up here, but you don't realize like the older generations above us are still going to retail. So what's going to happen is as we age, people younger than us are always going to be on e-commerce. Like now, if you told me to, I don't know, go buy a specific type of like cleaning fluid, I don't know which shop to go in. Like literally, I just Amazon everything, right? So that's where the future is headed. And once we get older, we're still going to be using things like Amazon, and our kids are going to be also using e-commerce to do all of their shopping. So it's like we're still very, very early stages, and technically because we're so young, we're still kind of early adopters to how things work within e-commerce. So there's still massive opportunity here. In terms of the best services to offer if you actually want to go into e-commerce, I would rank these services like in terms of from 1 to 4. I would rank it as number 1 being creative, basically being able to pump out things like ad creatives, logos, branded creatives if you want to go down the branded route or the performance route, it doesn't really matter. The main thing here is turnaround time and making sure that it's speedy, right? Like you really want to be able to churn out creatives at a really high volume and at a really high turnaround time, because everyone wants things to be quick right now. Creative at number 1, because to be honest, you're either like a videographer and someone who can produce really excellent quality content, or you're just not. It's kind of one of those things where not many people want to get into it because they don't know how to use a camera and they don't really want to learn. It's a lot less competitive in that sense. Number 2 is, in my opinion, email marketing. I think email marketing just edges Facebook ads out by a little bit. The reason why I chose email marketing is just because of the slightly lower barrier to entry, but also so last year when I did emails and ads, I've just enjoyed doing emails more. But some people, you know, they genuinely love media buying and delivering results through ads, then in which case I would recommend you go through ads. You can't really go wrong either service. And lastly, it's going to be social media management. So right now, social media management probably isn't like the top two. However, in the next maybe year or so, or 2 years, if you really understand social media growth, I don't know, if you develop like some in-house way to kind of growth hack Instagrams, you're really going to be able to scale social media management as a service, simply because everyone wants to grow on social media right now. Literally like everyone, right? And as people go away from social media management to offer things like email marketing and ads, you're really going to have more increased demand here in social media management. So it's not a bad service to go to. Outside of the e-commerce industry, I don't really understand every other industry to the same degree because I've become quite an expert in terms of e-commerce specifically. However, another space that I see high growth potential in is SaaS companies, so software as a service companies. I feel like SaaS founders are really underserved right now in the SMMA world, simply because people that come into the agency world, they come from like a dropshipping background or whatever, so they are predominantly in the marketing world, in the world of physical products. So they don't really understand SaaS. And I feel like SaaS marketing agencies are really going to take off within the space and perhaps even become kind of mainstream, like become the next Facebook ads for e-commerce stores kind of service, right? SaaS is really powerful. If you run ads for SaaS, they have a much higher target CPA because, you know, they're subscription based, so they're willing and able to lose money on the front end just to see profitability, let's say 6 months down the line or 12 months down the line. And many SaaS startups actually venture backed, so they are slightly more liquid in terms of how much they have in the bank, and they are more willing and able to spend heavily on marketing. Another thing is that SaaS founders are generally more of the kind of like computer sciencey engineering type, so that they don't really quite understand or pay too much attention to marketing. And by taking growth off of their shoulders, you are solving a massive problem for these founders. Lastly, the space that I feel like is really undervalued right now is actually social media growth. So helping influencers actually grow their social media. There are literally YouTube consultants out there, for example, like Paddy Galloway, that I watch quite a lot on YouTube, and he posts content about kind of like YouTube algorithm stuff. You can literally run an agency for pretty much anything. And I feel like there's a huge opportunity in the YouTube growth space, and that's why I think my friend Vince is actually doing a great job. He's the one that edits my videos and creates my thumbnails and overall just manages my channel. I've already referred him one client, so it's just like, well, clearly the demand is here for a service like this. It's just that not many people are aware of it, right? So you really want to be ahead of the herd in terms of providing services that aren't kind of mainstream yet. So once they do become mainstream, you're able to cannibalize a large percentage of the market share. I think YouTube SEO is going to be kind of the next big thing within the next 5 to 7 years, simply because considering, you know, it's the second largest search engine in the world. It definitely makes sense that you should be paying attention to YouTube and you should be posting content on YouTube, because, you know, Google SEO is very difficult to rank for keywords. However, with YouTube, it's so much less saturated, and for example, I'm able to rank for top keywords within the e-commerce space, things like Klaviyo. I can't rank for Shopify yet, but in the future I probably will. Facebook ads is a pretty easy one to rank for if you're pumping out kind of like fresh content and things like that. So yeah, the YouTube SEO space is a great problem to be solving for brands and creators. If you want to center your agency around that, highly recommend it. Hope you enjoyed this video, and please join my Facebook group down below. Basically on there I post content that doesn't rank on YouTube but is incredibly valuable because the information is super specific and actually actionable. Join my Facebook group down below for some free value, and I'll see you in the next video.